Hey, how's it going, everyone? Welcome back. So in the last video, we went ahead and talked about the base layer here. Now we're going to move on to creating the vegetation layer. So just like previously, I'm going to create a new layer group here. This layer group looks like I had this selected, so it appeared here. I'm just going to go ahead and click, drag, and move it above, or rather outside of this layer group here. I'm going to have two distinct layer groups. The vegetation layer is going to go on top. I like putting the vegetation on top because ultimately what's going to end up happening in this base group layer, we're going to have our grass, our roads, designated areas for where we want the buildings to be, etc. And then on the vegetation layer, we're going to be able to put that on top and paint on top of it, right, where we want our vegetation to be, our trees, our bushes, tall grass, all that good stuff. If we put this vegetation layer underneath, when we try to paint, quote unquote, on top of the base layer, it will not be visible because everything on the base layer will be covering it. So again, recommend the vegetation layer to be above. I'm going to create a new layer here. This new layer, I can call it whatever I want. I'm going to go ahead and just call it trees. I'm going to hit OK. The trees naming convention I got, well, actually, I should call it dense forest is what I'm going to call it, because it's the vegetation map colors that I got from the Indie Stone guide. I'm going to go ahead and call that dense forest. The only change that I'm going to make is I'm going to make sure that there are no spaces to make everything easier for myself. Now, that being said, with the dense forest selected, I'm going to go ahead and pick the dense forest color, which is 25500. In other words, it is a pure red, or rather, programmatically speaking. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. And then I'm going to go ahead and select this little, be sure that you select the pencil tool and not the paintbrush. I'll talk about that in a moment. I'm going to go ahead and draw some lines here. It looks red, which is confusing, but in essence, right, anything that is red, that is going to be trees in terms of the vegetation, because that is what the developers have programmed. Now, if anything were the absence of color, or black, is effectively going to tell the vegetation there is no vegetation here. So I'm going to go ahead and click the vegetation layer. We are going to need a base layer with nothing on it, because anytime we export vegetation layer maps, it's going to need a black background. So I'm going to call this veg base. That way I know that that's the base layer for my vegetation. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I have the color black selected, and I'm going to fill, while this layer selected, the entire thing as black. So this is going to look funny like this, but this is kind of that example. If I don't look at the vegetation base layer, I can see everything that we've made down here. And when I paint over by selecting this dense forest, right, and the red, we're going to be able to draw on top of our map and see what we want to see, whether it's like a square, lines, etc., etc. It doesn't really matter. Cool. With that being said, let's go ahead and now start exporting these. We're going to export these in the next video. We're going to create a file structure so that I can show you how I like storing all of my files and folders for the map mod. And then once we get the file structure going, all these PNGs, as I was telling, exported, then we'll go ahead and get them in the game so that we can test it, or rather in the world editor. All right, we'll see you in the next video. This is effectively a quick show of how we get the vegetation layer set up. See you in the next one.